Somewhere in the dim glow of flickering candlelight, beneath crumbling arches of stone older than kingdoms, a lone scholar traces his fingers over parchment so ancient it threatens to dissolve at his touch. The name lingers like a whisper. Gondolin. For years, Elenion has chased fragments of Elven lore, piecing together legends dismissed as myth. But tonight, in this forgotten corner of the world, the past breathes again. The ink on this fragile page speaks of white towers gleaming beneath the stars, of a hidden kingdom veiled by mountains and magic. And as the weight of discovery settles over him, he knows he is not the only one searching. Darker shadows move at the edges of history, hungry for what lies buried. Wherever you're joining us from, whether it's the quiet hush of midnight or the golden light of dawn, we'd love to know what hour has drawn you into this tale. Leave a note in the comments below, and let's wander together into the echoes of a world almost lost to time, because this isn't just a story of ruins and relics. It's about the fire that keeps us digging deeper, the obsession that makes us tilt our heads at the horizon and wonder what else might be waiting, half hidden, just beyond sight. Gondolin wasn't merely a city. It was a dream carved in marble, a refuge so radiant its memory outlasted the fall of ages. Imagine walls that shimmered like pearl, gates wrought with spells to turn away evil, and a people who walked with the grace of the first dawn. But the greatest marvel, it vanished, not into dust, but into legend so completely that many swore it had never existed at all, until now, until this moment, when a scholar's trembling hands hold the first thread of proof. The journey ahead is perilous, woven with riddles and rivals, but the reward, to stand where the elves once sang beneath the stars, to uncover a splendor the world was meant to forget. So lean in close. The parchment is fragile, the path is uncertain, and the story is about to begin. The firelight casts long shadows across their faces as Elenion unrolls the fragile parchment between them. Lirien leans in, her sharp eyes tracing the faded lines. Not just ink, but something deeper, something alive. These markings, she murmurs, they're not just directions. They are a warning. Her fingers hover over the swirling script, as if the very parchment might sing if touched too boldly. Thordin, though, lets out a rough laugh, the sound like grinding stone. Guardians, ghost stories. What's buried in those mountains belongs to my people. Hammers, gems, the work of our ancestors. Let the elves keep their poetry. We're owed more than whispers. Elenion watches the tension coil between them, the fire popping like a challenge. He knows Lirien's fear isn't superstition. The old tales speak of Gondolin's last defenders, beings of light and fury, who sealed the city's fate rather than let it fall. But Thordin's pride is just as real, the weight of dwarven history pressing on his shoulders. And then there's the parchment itself, humming beneath his palms, as if the ink remembers the hands that wrote it. A gust of wind rattles the trees, and for a heartbeat, the fire dims. Lirien stiffens, her hand drifting to the dagger at her belt. Thordin merely grunts, tossing another branch into the flames. Make your choice, scholar, he rumbles. Do we chase shadows or gold? Elenion doesn't hesitate. We chase the truth. His voice is quiet but iron steady, not just for glory or gold, but because some stories demand to be found. The parchment glows faintly in his grip, as if in answer, Lirien exhales, nodding once. Thordin claps a heavy hand on Elenion's shoulder, the closest he'll come to agreement. And just like that, the path is set toward the mountains, toward the mist, toward whatever waits in the silence between legend and memory. The fire burns lower now, but the air hums with something brighter, sharper. The kind of energy that lingers before a storm or a beginning. The wind howls through the narrow pass like a chorus of unseen voices, biting cold and thick with the scent of wet stone. Lirien braces against the gale, her cloak snapping like a banner as she traces her fingers over the weathered carvings. The symbols glow faintly beneath her touch, their edges too precise to be natural erosion. This isn't just a storm, she shouts over the roaring wind. The mountains remember. Thordin scowls, his beard crusted with ice, and kicks at the nearest rock. Superstitious nonsense. Rockfalls happen, no need to blame ghosts. But as his boot makes contact, the ground shudders. A deep, grating groan echoes through the pass before the cliffs above them split open, sending a cascade of boulders tumbling straight toward them. Elenion doesn't think he acts. With a cry in a language half remembered from his studies, he throws out his hands. The air shimmers, and for a heartbeat, the falling stones slow, suspended as if caught in amber. It's just enough time for the trio to scramble behind a jagged outcrop, the boulders crashing harmlessly past. Silence follows, broken only by their ragged breaths. Thordin stares at Elenion, his usual gruffness replaced by something like awe. Since when do scholars know Elven magic? Lirien, though, is already studying the carvings again, her voice barely above a whisper. Because it's not just magic, it's a test. Gondolin doesn't hide. It waits, and it chooses who finds it. The storm rages on, but now the wind carries something else. A melody woven into the chaos, faint as a half-forgotten dream. The path ahead splits, one route vanishing into mist, the other lit by an eerie, moonlight glow. Elenion knows the stories, cities that walk between worlds, gates that open only for those who listen. But stories never mention the cost, or the hunger in the air, as if the mountains themselves are holding their breath, waiting to see if these intruders are worthy, or if they'll join the bones already buried beneath the snow. The crystalline lake lies still as glass, its surface mirroring ruins that shouldn't exist, towers and arches that vanish when Elenion blinks, as if the water holds memories the land has forgotten. Lirien kneels at the shore, her fingertips barely skimming the surface. The air here is thick, heavy with the scent of wet moss and something older, something like the breath of a long-sealed tomb. She closes her eyes, humming a melody so ancient the very syllables seem to hum back. The hymn isn't just sound, it's a key, and as her voice rises, the illusion wavers like heat off stone, revealing the skeletal remains of a bridge, its marble bones half sunk into the water. Thordin shifts his weight, the grip on his axe tightening. Clever trick, he mutters, but there's no mockery now. Even he can feel it, the weight of eyes they can't see, the prickle of magic like static before a storm. The bridge stretches toward a gate so tall, it seems to scrape the sky, its silver veins tarnished black with time. Elenion's breath catches. This isn't just a ruin. It's a threshold. One step onto the bridge, and the world changes. The air thrums, the lake's reflection, twisting until the ruins in the water glow brighter than those on land, as if Gondolin exists in reverse, its true self hidden beneath the surface. Lirien's hymn falters when the gate's shadow falls over them, its carvings too precise, too untouched by time. A gust of wind coils around Elenion's wrist, tugging him forward like an impatient guide. His palm presses against the gate's cold metal, and the question comes not as sound, but as a vibration in his ribs. Who seeks the last light of Gondolin? The silence that follows is alive. Thordin's jaw clenches, his dwarven pride warring with the instinct to kneel. Lirien's lips move soundlessly, tracing the shape of a name she's only ever read in crumbling texts. And Elenion, he knows the stories never ended like this, with a choice. To answer is to step into a tale still being written, to become part of whatever spell has kept Gondolin hidden for ages. The wind stirs again, insistent, and the gate's hinges groan like a creature waking from sleep. Beyond it, the mist parts just enough to reveal a single white tower, its peak catching a light that doesn't come from the sun. The gate groans shut behind them with a sound like a tomb's ceiling, and suddenly the air is too thick, too heavy with the scent of crumbling petals and old rain. What should be ruins feel alive not with breath, but with echoes. The cobblestones beneath their feet are worn smooth by footsteps that vanished centuries ago, and the vines choking the white towers shudder as if stirred by unseen hands. Thordin's torch gutters, the flame twisting into shapes that almost look like faces, while whispers coil around them, not words, but the ghost of words, syllables lingering just beyond comprehension. Lirien freezes, her hand closing around Elenion's wrist. Do you hear that? Her voice is barely audible over the sighing wind. It's not the wind, it's them. The hair on the back of Elenion's neck rises as he follows her gaze to the facades of empty buildings. In the flickering torchlight, the shadows don't just move, they pause. Turn, watch, not with malice, but with a terrible, aching curiosity, as if the city itself is straining to remember what it feels like to have visitors. Thordin's grip tightens on his axe, his usual bravado dulled by the wrongness of it all. This isn't treasure hunting, he mutters. This is walking into a dream that doesn't want us here. But Elenion is already stepping forward, drawn like a moth to the distant gleam of a domed hall at the city's heart. His fingers brush a low wall, and for a heartbeat, the moss beneath his touch flares silver, revealing the outline of a child's handprint, preserved in the stone like a fossil. Lirien's warning is sharp. Every step we take, we're waking something up. Gondolin isn't dead. It's sleeping, and we're the itch it can't scratch. The path ahead splits, one route leading upward to the hall's shattered arches, the other descending into a plaza where the shadows pool thicker, darker. A choice, then, the scholar's hunger for answers, or the survivor's instinct to flee. Elenion doesn't hesitate. He strides toward the hall, his boots scattering petals that turn to dust before they hit the ground. Behind him, Lirien exhales a curse, but she follows, because the truth is, she feels it too. Not just fear, but the pull of a song half heard, a melody that tugs at her bones. Thordin lingers a moment longer, his dwarven senses screaming at him to turn back, but loyalty wins. With a grunt, he trudges after them, his torch casting long, wavering shadows that don't quite match his movements. The deeper they go, the clearer the whispers become, not words, but emotions, joy, grief, a warning. The air hums with the weight of a story interrupted, a tale cut short by fire and wings. And then, just as the hall's entrance looms before them, the torch snuffs out entirely, not from wind, from something worse, silence, the kind that comes when the world holds its breath. The plaza opens before them like a wound in time, its cracked mosaics, shimmering with phantom hues of gold and blue. At its center, the air ripples, coalescing into the towering figure of a silver-crowned elf, Turgon, his face carved with sorrow, older than the mountains. His voice rolls over them, not as sound but as something deeper, vibrating in their marrow. Flee, the vision pleads, for the night has fangs, and even stone cannot withstand the fire to come. The plea fractures, the plaza twisting into a nightmare of wings and flame dragons, their scales black as poisoned ink, blotting out the sun. Screams, real screams, echo from the stones as the memory of Gondolin's fall plays out around them. Thordin staggers back, his dwarven hands clutching at a banner half rotted to dust. The emblem is unmistakable, the intertwined hammer and star of the lost dwarven alliance, the very pact broken by Gondolin's doom. A roar tears from his throat, raw with centuries of grief, and he wrenches the banner pole free, smashing it against the ground. The impact sends a shockwave through the plaza, the earth trembling as if in answer. Cracks spiderweb outward, splitting the vision like shattered glass. Elenion shouts, but the ground gives way beneath him, swallowing him into darkness. The fall is brief, cold air rushing past as he lands hard on smooth stone. Dust swirls in the dim light, filtering from above, revealing a chamber untouched by ruin. At its center, a pedestal glows with a soft, silver radiance. A lamp, its delicate filigree shaped like unfurling wings. Idril's lamp. The stories whispered it held the last light of Gondolin, not flame, but something purer, a fragment of the city's soul. Above, Lirien's voice is frantic, distant, Elenion, but his attention is locked on the lamp. As he reaches out, the air hums, the glow intensifying. Shadows pool at the edges of the chamber, not fleeing the light, but bending toward it, as if drawn by a force older than darkness. The pedestal's carvings shift under his fingertips, revealing words in a script that burns itself into his vision. Who bears the light must also bear the weight. A tremor shakes the chamber, dust raining from the ceiling. Somewhere above, Thordin bellows and Lirien's answering cry is sharp with warning. But the lamp's glow pulses, steady as a heartbeat, and in its light, Elenion sees the truth. Gondolin's fall was never the end. It was a beginning, and the choice before him isn't about taking the lamp. It's about whether he's ready to carry what it truly means. The name leaves Elenion's lips like a confession, barely audible yet heavy enough to make the chamber's air tremble. Lyra, his sister's name, the scholar who vanished into the wilds years ago, chasing the same legends that now threaten to consume him. The spectral guardian's sword wavers, its edge catching the lamp's glow, as if weighing the truth in his voice. For a heartbeat, the blade lingers at his throat. Then, with a sound like a sigh, it dissolves into mist. The guardian's voice echoes, softer now. Grief is a key as much as knowledge. The lamp flares, its light painting the chamber walls with scenes of Gondolin, in its prime elves, laughing in sun-dappled courtyards, children weaving crowns of summer blossoms, Turgon standing tall atop the white tower as dawn gilded the mountains. But the beauty is a blade turned inward. Every mural, every fragment of joy, mirrors what Elenion lost. Lyra's laughter, her stubborn grip on his sleeve when a translation vexed her, the way she'd hum old ballads while sketching ruins in her journal. The lamp's light burns hotter in his hands, not with pain, but with a terrible, tender knowing. It doesn't just show him Gondolin's past, it shows him his own. Above, Thordin's bellow shatters the moment. Elenion, move your bones or we're all crow food. The scraping sounds have multiplied, now a chorus of stone grating against stone. Lirien's voice is razor sharp with urgency. The city's waking, and it's not just the walls. Elenion staggers back as the murals ripple, their colors bleeding into the air. The painted elves turn their heads not toward him, but past him, their faces twisting in alarm. A new sound joins the chaos, wings, not the memory of dragons, but something closer, drier, like parchment unfurling. The chamber's entrance darkens as shapes pour from the cracks in the plaza, above creatures of jagged stone and shadow, their bodies cobbled together from broken statues and shattered armor. The guardians of Gondolin's corpse, and they're not here to test, they're here to cleanse. Lirien's dagger finds the first creature's throat, or where a throat should be. Black dust spills from the wound, hissing as it hits the lamp's light. Run, she snarls, but Thordin's already hauling Elenion upright, his grip iron tight. You carry that light like your life depends on it, he growls, because it does. The path back is gone, swallowed by collapsing stone, but the murals still glow, their scenes shifting, guiding them deeper into the ruins. Toward the tower, toward whatever waits where Gondolin's heart once beat. The creatures give chase, their movements jerky but relentless. Lirien weaves ahead, her steps sure as if she's reading the city's pulse. It's hurting us, she pants. The lamp, it's showing the way. Elenion clutches the light closer, its glow etching frantic patterns on the walls. The truth sears him. Gondolin isn't just a place to be found. It's a reckoning, and the deeper they go, the clearer the whispers become. Not just the cities, but Lyra's, her voice threading through the chaos like a lifeline. You were always better at letting go, she'd told him once. But now, with the lamp's weight in his hands and the past howling at his heels, he knows the cruel joke of it. Some things won't be left behind, they have to be carried. The aqueduct's archway looms ahead, its carvings choked with roots that writhe like living things as the trio stumbles forward. Thordin's blood splashes across the tiles, each drop hissing as it strikes the stone. The walls shudder, their once gleaming veins of silver now blackening, crumbling to ash at the edges. Lirien's breath comes in sharp gasps as she presses a hand to the statue's fallen torso, her fingers tracing the shattered crest of a long-dead king. It's not just blocking the path, she murmurs. It's morning. Thordin barks a laugh, though pain tightens his voice. Tell it to weep later. With a roar, he plants his boots against the slick stone, muscles straining as he shoves the marble figure aside. The statue grinds forward an inch, then another, its hollow eyes staring blindly as it finally topples into the stagnant water below. But the victory is short-lived. A spear, not of metal, but of twisted light, screams past them, grazing Thordin's shoulder. He staggers, his blood now mingling with the aqueduct's trickling stream, and the water itself recoils, bubbling where it touches him. Elenion's grip on the lamp tightens as the corridor behind them fractures, chunks of ceiling crashing down in clouds of powdered opal. The light in his hands flickers, not with fear, but with urgency. Gondolin isn't just collapsing, he shouts over the din. It's unraveling. Whatever's left of its magic sees us as invaders now, or worse, part of the wreckage it's trying to bury. Lirien darts ahead, her boots skidding on the damp stone as she reaches the aqueduct's edge. Below, the water churns, no longer still but swirling in patterns too precise to be random. Shapes form and dissolve in its depth. Faces, hands, fragments of a song. It's a way out, she says, though her voice wavers, but not a gentle one. Thordin clutches his wounded shoulder, his teeth bared in a grimace. Better than being crushed like a beetle. He doesn't wait for agreement. With a grunt, he leaps into the current, his bulk vanishing beneath the frothing surface. The decision hangs in the air for only a heartbeat. Then the walls behind them split with a sound like 1,000 mirrors shattering. Elenion meets Lirien's gaze, and in her eyes, he sees the same realization. This isn't just escape. It's surrender, to the water, to the city's dying breath, to whatever fate Gondolin has left to offer. The water is colder than he expects, pulling him down with hands that feel almost tender. The lamp's glow stretches into filaments of silver, weaving a fragile net of light around them as the current drags them deeper. For a moment, there's silence. Then the whispers return not in his ears, but in his bones. A question, half-formed and heavy with sorrow. Will you remember us? Darkness swallows them. But the lamp still burns. The cavern swallows them whole, its arched ceiling dripping with luminescent moss that casts ghostly ripples across the water. The boat's sleek, silver-veined, impossibly preserved rocks violently as the current seizes it, hurling them forward like leaves in a storm. Lirien grips the rudder, her arms trembling with the effort to keep them from capsizing, while Elenion braces against the prow, the lamp's glow flaring as if in protest. Its light licks the cavern walls, illuminating frescoes that seem to bleed. Elves with swords raised against a sky choked with smoke, dragons coiled around crumbling towers, a lone figure, Turgon, standing at the heart of the ruin, his hand outstretched not in defiance, but in grief. Thordin slumps against the boat's edge, his face ashen beneath his beard. Blood drips from his wound into the water, each drop dissolving into tendrils of crimson mist. We dug too deep, he rasps, his voice rougher than the river's roar. My kin, we heard the elves' warnings, but the veins of Mithril ran richer under Gondolin's roots. We thought, his jaw clenches as the admission claws its way out. We thought the mountain would protect us all. The words land like a stone in still water, rippling through the boat. Lirien's knuckles whiten on the rudder, but her gaze flicks to the frescoes, not just art, but a reckoning. The dwarves' tunnels hadn't just weakened the city's foundations. They'd given Morgoth's beasts a path in. The river ahead forks with sudden, cruel clarity. To the left, a sliver of daylight glimmers, the promise of open air and escape. To the right, the water spirals into a throat of darkness, the current there twisting like a living thing. Lirien shouts over the roar, choose, but the lamp in Elenion's hands doesn't hesitate. Its flame bends toward the abyss, not as if drawn, but as if pulled. By something ancient, something waiting, the boat shudders, the wood groaning as the current tugs them toward the light. Elenion knows the rational choice, knows what Lirien's survival instincts demand, what Thordin's wound begs for, but the lamp's light isn't just a guide. It's a mirror. In its glow, the frescoes shift again, showing not Gondolin's fall, but its first stones being laid, elves and dwarves laboring side by side, their hands clasped in trust. A memory of what was, or perhaps what could be again. Thordin's breath hitches as he follows Elenion's gaze. Madness, he mutters, but his hand closes around the scholar's wrist, not to stop him, but to steady him. Lirien's curse is lost in the river's howl as she wrenches the rudder, sending them plunging into the dark. The daylight vanishes behind them like a snuffed candle, and the air turns thick, tasting of wet metal and old magic. The lamp's flame gutters once, then burns impossibly brighter, searing the shadows away to reveal the truth ahead. Not an end, but a door of blackened silver, its surface etched with dwarven runes and elven script intertwined. A plea, a pact, a last hope forged in the heart of ruin. The boat grinds to a halt against the door's base, the river's fury suddenly stilled. Silence hangs like a held breath. Then, from the depths, a voice that is not a voice vibrates through the water, through their bones. Who comes to mend what was broken? The question isn't just for Elenion, it's for all of them. For the scholar clutching the light, for the warrior bleeding out her resolve, for the dwarf carrying the weight of his ancestors' pride. The door shudders, its seams glowing white hot, and the choice is no longer about paths. It's about what they're willing to surrender to walk forward. Against the roar of the river, against every instinct that screams for sunlight and safety, Elenion leans into the darkness, the lamp's flame cutting through the gloom like a blade. The others hesitate. Lirien's fingers twitch toward her dagger. Thordin's breath comes ragged with pain, but the light doesn't waver. It pulls them deeper, down into the cavern's throat, where the walls shimmer with veins of crystal, each facet catching the glow and fracturing it into 1,000 scattered stars. And then they see it. The tree rises from the stone like a monument to stubbornness, its trunk twisted and split with age, its roots coiled around a chest of silver, so tarnished it's nearly black. Glingle's last child. The stories said the golden tree of Gondolin burned with the city, but here, in this sunless tomb, a single gnarled descendant clings to life. Its branches bare but for a handful of leaves that tremble as the lamp's light brushes them. For a heartbeat, the cavern holds its breath. Then the impossible happens. The tree blooms, not with flowers, but with light, each leaf unfurling into a radiant echo of its former glory, the air thick with the scent of honey and crushed herbs, a memory of spring preserved in stone. The chest groans open, its hinges stiff with centuries. Inside, no jewels, no weapons, no dwarven forged marvels, just a scroll, its parchment brittle as dried petals, sealed with a sigil none of them recognize, a wing encircling a flame. Elenion's hands shake as he lifts it, the wax crumbling at his touch. The words that greet them aren't inked, they're burned into the page, as if written with a finger dipped in starlight. To those who come after, Turgon's voice seems to whisper through the parchment, "Carry not our gold, but our story." For Gondolin's true treasure was never its towers, but the moments they sheltered, the laughter in its gardens, the songs in its halls, the hands that built it together. Remember us not as a tragedy, but as a warning. Light shared is light multiplied. Hoarded, it becomes a pyre. The cavern shudders, dust raining from the ceiling as the crystals overhead darken, their glow dying like embers in the wind. The tree's light fades, its leaves withering to ash before they hit the ground. Lirien's hand closes around Elenion's arm, her grip urgent. "The city's letting go," she murmurs. "We have to move," but Thordin doesn't budge. His gaze is locked on the chest, on the emptiness where treasure should be. All this, he rasps, for words. The ground bucks beneath them, a crack splitting the cavern floor as the river surges, its waters turning black with silt. The lamp's flame gutters, and in that flicker, Elenion sees it, the truth etched in Thordin's face, in the way Lirien's eyes dart to the crumbling ceiling. They'd come for answers, for glory, for absolution, and Gondolin, in its final act, has given them none of those things, just a choice, to carry the past forward or let it drown with them. The scroll burns cold in Elenion's grip, its words searing his palms like ice. Behind them, the way they came is already gone. The water spits them onto the riverbank like discarded bones, the current's grip finally slackening as they drag themselves onto the rocks. Thordin collapses face first, his breath coming in wet, rattling gasps, while Lirien's hands already raw from clinging to the boat, now press against the gash in his side, her fingers slick with blood and river silt. Elenion staggers to his knees, the scroll clutched to his chest like a shield, its edges crumbling where the water touched it. The lamp lies abandoned in the mud, its silver filigree tarnished, its glow reduced to a faint pulse, as if the last ember of Gondolin's heart is flickering out. Dusk paints the mountains in hues of violet and bruise, the peaks shuddering as the cavern's entrance seals itself with a groan of shifting stone, gone. As if it had never been, Elenion's throat tightens. They'd walked into legend and survived, but what had they truly carried back? Not gold, not glory. Just a scroll and the weight of what it means. A rustle in the undergrowth snaps Lirien's head up, her dagger drawn before she's even fully upright. But the figure that steps from the trees isn't a foe, an elf, his hair the color of frost-bitten oak leaves, his cloak woven from shadows and starlight. A minstrel, by the lute strapped to his back, though his hands are empty now, trembling at his sides. He doesn't speak at first, just drops to one knee in the mud, his eyes locked on the scroll in Elenion's hands. When he finally finds his voice, it's cracked with something older than grief. "You found it," he whispers. "You found the last song." Lirien's blade doesn't lower. "Who are you?" The elf doesn't flinch. A memory keeper, a mourner, one of many who waited, though we dared not hope. His fingers brush the air above the scroll, not touching, as if it might dissolve at his touch. "For centuries, we've sung of Gondolin's fall, but you've brought back its voice." A tear slips down his cheek, catching the last light of the dying lamp. Not just how it ended, how it lived. Thordin coughs, rolling onto his side with a grunt. Pretty words won't stitch flesh, he growls, but the defiance in his voice is hollow. Even he can't ignore the way the minstrel's presence settles over them like a shroud, not threatening, but heavy with the weight of something unfinished. The elf rises slowly, his gaze shifting to the mountains, now still and silent. "The city is gone," he murmurs, "but stories are seeds. Plant them and they grow." He reaches for his lute, the first notes plucked soft as a heartbeat. It's not a dirge, it's a lullaby, one that curls around them like smoke, carrying the scent of blossoms long vanished, the echo of laughter from halls turned to dust. Elenion's fingers tighten around the scroll, He'd thought they were leaving Gondolin behind, but the truth is colder, sharper. Gondolin isn't done with them. The minstrel's song wraps around his ribs, familiar and foreign all at once, and in its melody, he hears the unspoken question, not what will you do now, but what will you do with this? The lamp's light gutters one last time and winks out. The fire crackles low between them, its embers painting Caranthir's face in flickering gold as his fingers dance across the lute strings. The melody is older than the mountains, a lament for lost Gondolin, yes, but woven through with something brighter, like the first thread of dawn in a starless sky. When Elenion unfurls the scroll, the parchment sighs, as if relieved to finally be seen, its burned letters glowing faintly in the firelight. Caranthir's song cuts off mid-note, his breath hitching as his gaze locks on the names etched there. This is no chronicle, he whispers, his voice fraying at the edges. This is a lineage, my lineage. His fingertip traces a single branching line, Turgon's blood, thought lost, now curling like a vine to meet his own. Thordin spits into the fire, the embers hissing. A family tree won't raise towers from rubble, he mutters, though his usual gruffness is dulled by exhaustion. The wound at his side has stopped bleeding, but his hands still tremble where they grip his axe. What good are names when the hands that bore them are dust? Lirien's reply is quiet but sharp as a blade. Because dust remembers, she leans forward, her eyes reflecting the scroll's glow. Gondolin fell, but its story didn't. What if that's the real treasure? Not what was lost, but what survives. In songs, in scrolls, in the blood of those who still care. Her gaze flicks to Elenion, lingering on the empty lamp, cradled in his lap. We could carry it forward, not as a dirge, but as a warning, as hope. The words settle over Elenion like a cloak, lighter than he expected. All these years, he'd chased Gondolin, as if finding its stones would fill the hollow Lyra's disappearance had left. But the city was never the answer. It was the question. What do we do with the ruins we inherit? The lamp is cold against his palms, its silver tarnished, its light spent, yet somehow he feels less empty than before. Caranthir's lute stirs again, but the tune has changed. No longer a lament, but a bridge between past and present, between elf and dwarf and human, between the fallen and those who must keep walking. The stars wheel overhead, indifferent to their small fireside revelations, but for the first time, Elenion doesn't resent their silence. Purpose isn't something you find. It's something you build, one story, one step at a time. Thordin exhales through his nose, a sound like a bear conceding ground. Fine, he grumbles. But if we're peddling tales, we start with the dwarves. Let the world hear how deep our axes bit before the dragons came. Lirien smirks, tossing a pebble at his boot. Spoken like a true historian, the fire burns lower, but the night feels less dark than it did before. Somewhere in the distance, an owl cries, or perhaps it's just the wind, carrying the echoes of a city that refused to be forgotten. The road forks like a crack in the earth beneath their boots, each path leading to a different shade of the future. Thordin hefts his pack, the shard of Gondolin's marble strapped to his back, gleaming faintly in the morning light, not as a trophy, but as a truce. His people will scoff at first, he knows. Dwarven pride runs deeper than any mine, but stone remembers, and this fragment, still humming with the echo of Elven song, might just be the chisel that chips away at centuries of grudges. He clasps Elenion's forearm hard enough to bruise, the closest thing to tenderness his pride allows. Tell the next fool who chases ghosts to bring better ale. He grumbles, then turns west without looking back, his silhouette swallowed by the dust of the trade roads. Caranthir lingers longest, the scroll cradled against his chest like a sleeping child. The wind toys with the loose threads of his cloak, as if Gondolin itself is reluctant to let its last song go. Linden's libraries will preserve the words, he murmurs, but words are seeds. They need hands to scatter them. His gaze flicks to Lirien, then away, an unspoken challenge. She answers with a sharp nod, her fingers brushing the blank pages of the journal tucked into her belt. No longer just a blade in the dark, but a keeper of stories. Caranthir's smile is fleeting, bittersweet. Then he's gone, his footsteps silent as the first snow, the melody he hums already weaving new verses into the old lament. Elenion watches them until the horizon swallows them whole. The weight of the empty lamp still tugs at his pack, its purpose spent, but its lesson seared into his bones. Some treasures aren't meant to be kept, they're meant to be passed on. Lirien nudges his shoulder with hers, her voice rough from days of little sleep and too much smoke. Home, then, he doesn't answer right away. Home had always been a shifting thing, a borrowed attic in Minas Tirith, a firelit tent in the wilds, wherever Lyra's laughter had last echoed. But the wind shifts, carrying the scent of rain and something else, something like the crisp tang of ink on fresh parchment. It stirs the leaves at their feet, revealing a single white petal, impossibly pristine amidst the dirt. Gondolin's last gift, or perhaps its final tease. Lirien scoops it up, her callous fingers gentle. Not the end, she says, and it isn't a question. Elenion breathes deep, the ghost of honey and crushed herbs lingering in the air. Somewhere ahead, a thrush sings 3 clear notes, bright as a blade on stone. He adjusts his pack, feels the whisper of parchment against his back notes, copied painstakingly from the scroll, because some truths are too heavy for one set of hands to carry alone, and takes the first step east. Toward the next story, toward whatever waits, half hidden, just beyond sight. The petal trembles in Lirien's palm, then lifts on a sudden gust, spiraling upward until it's lost in the light. Neither of them wave, they don't need to. The wind knows where to find them. The quill scratches its last line across the parchment, the ink still glistening as Elenion leans back in his chair. The lamplight ordinary now, just oil and wick flickers over the title, etched at the top of the page, the last light of Gondolin. Beyond the window, Lirien's laughter tangles with the high, bright voices of children, as she teaches them the old melodies, their syllables stumbling over Elven words like pebbles in a stream. The songs are different now, softened by time and human tongues, but the heart of them remains the joy, the sorrow, the stubborn refusal to let beauty fade quietly into the dark. The silver lamp sits on the shelf beside him, tarnished and silent. Once, it had pulsed with the very soul of a lost kingdom. Now it's just an object, its weight measured in memory rather than magic. Elenion runs a finger along its cool edge, half expecting, hoping for a spark. But some doors, once closed, stay shut, and perhaps that's as it should be. A breeze slips through the open window, carrying the scent of apple blossoms and damp earth. It stirs the pages of his manuscript, the words seeming to breathe for a moment before settling. He thinks of Thordin's last letter, tucked between the leaves of his journal, a rough sketch of dwarven children in the halls of Erebor, their small hands tracing the elven scrollwork their elders once scorned. He thinks of Caranthir's last visit, the minstrel's lute now strung with new chords, weaving Gondolin's legacy into ballads of living cities, of alliances reforged. Most of all, he thinks of Lyra, her absence no longer a wound but a compass, pointing him toward stories yet to be unearthed. Outside, the children's chorus reaches a crescendo, their voices tripping over a particularly tricky refrain. Lyrien's correction is gentle, her patience endless. Elenion watches as she plucks a white petal from her hair. Where it came from, he can't guess, and tucks it behind a giggling girl's ear. The sight lodges in his throat. Not all ruins are made of stone. Some are made of moments, fragile as parchment, fleeting as a song on the wind, and some, the rarest kind, are rebuilt every time someone chooses to remember. He closes the manuscript, the leather binding warm under his palms. The lamp stays on the shelf. The stories, though, those he carries. Down the road, beyond the garden gate, a thrush sings 3 clear notes. An ending, or maybe just the space between verses.